Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 11 of Immortal X-Men, written by Al Ewing. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. The issue begins with Storm and Rasputin standing in the council chamber, ready to take action, for their aim was to remove the sinister gene from their fellow council members, starting with Charles Xavier. So with that said, Cypher told Krakoa to promptly expel Charles from the pit, where Rasputin immediately secured him both physically and psychically. Now this was done to ensure safety, as Charles is one of those mutants capable of killing with a mere thought. So once he was safely secured, the same process was repeated for the remaining council members. Once everyone was locked down, Charles questioned the necessity of the procedures since he and the others willingly entered the pit, to which Rasputin responded by reminding Charles that his words are powerful, and she has witnessed the consequences of one's worst fears, because in her timeline, Charles' words were a brand that was burned into trillions of minds. Therefore, she needs to exercise caution. So with that said, I have mixed feelings about how fast this was resolved, for on one hand, with Charles and the others in the pit, could set up some interesting storylines, especially because Moira is currently digging her way there. But on the other hand, Krakoa is home to some of the brightest minds in the world that could resolve this issue, like Dr. Nemesis and Forge. So speaking of Forge, on the next page, we see that was exactly who they went with to fix the problem. For Forge has developed a tool that could locate and isolate the sinister gene. So once everyone was strapped in, Storm gave the okay to fire up the machine. Now initially, the device was unable to detect the specific strain, for he and his device thoroughly checked the genetic database and found absolutely nothing. So with everything looking good, Forge had to go back to the drawing board and worked on a whole new routine, which allowed him to find it. Now according to Forge's report, Sinister hid the gene inside a subdimensional loop within the DNA, which made it almost totally invisible to detect. And the only way it was found was because there was a one base pair stitch that looked off, kind of like finding a needle in a haystack. And in that needle was the full genome, filled with all Sinister's toxic traits. So of course, he removed the loop which made the genome go back to normal. After successfully purging the subdimensional loop, Charles, Emma, Hope, and Exodus expected to go back to business as usual. However, Storm quickly dismissed this idea, as she believed they were not yet out of danger. So with that said, the council members were confused until Forge explained that while they may have removed all of it, there was no guarantee it would stay gone as they had missed it before. So at the end of the day, Sinister's potential trick still remained a mystery, leaving them uncertain about what other surprises he may have in store for them in the future. And due to that uncertainty, Storm wanted Charles to step down from the resurrection process and turned it over to the Cuckoos, and as for Hope, she was allowed to continue, but her rate was reduced, and anyone she resurrected would need to undergo Forge's cleaning process and be monitored until they were deemed stable. Additionally, those brought back would not be allowed to vote but would remain on the council to avoid appearing weak to their enemies. To ensure that they understood the gravity of the situation, Storm had the four watch a monitor that replayed the sins of Sinister events, which was provided by Mother Righteousness. So as they watched it, Storm made sure it was done slowly and deliberately, so they could fully comprehend why this could not continue. And when it was all over, Storm then made them watch a little more, just to add good measure. So with the events seared into their minds, the members walked away completely defeated to the point where bonds between once friends were severed, for Hope could no longer look at Exodus without disgust, as she proclaimed to no longer be his messiah. Now Charles was completely broken after witnessing the events, and he had nothing left to say except for asking, "What do you need from us?" In which Storm replied by saying, "We can't be seen publicly dismissing another 4 members from the council, because it could be seen as chaotic. And on top of that, they can't afford to lose any of their input. So for now, as I said earlier in the video, they will sit on the council so they can keep up appearances, with the exception of their inability to vote." So with that said, Storm had yet one more stipulation, which was Rasputin would serve as Charles's personal security at all times. Which kind of took Charles aback, for he questioned if it was safe for her to watch him, for she was created by Sinister. So with everything set in stone, Charles asked Storm what have they missed while they have been gone, in regards to the Moira clones and Destiny's machinations. After arriving at the council chamber, the duo approached Destiny with some pressing questions regarding the clones. Because Destiny was completely aware of the clones and could have informed them, but she chose not to out of quote-unquote fear that Sinister would reset the timeline if he found out. She had been carefully navigating the timeline to find a way to eliminate Sinister. However, Storm was not pleased with Destiny's actions, as she had seen the future and knew that Destiny had tricked her into stealing the Moira engine. So with that said, Storm found this unforgivable, especially since Destiny knew how to deactivate the X gene, similar to what she had done with the real Moira. So as tension further increased between the two women, Storm proceeded to ask her again why didn't she stop the timeline, to which Destiny replied with a half-truth, for she stated that Sinister had an unbreakable force field surrounding it, one that she couldn't get around. But see, we know the full story, for Destiny wanted to keep the timeline going, so she could keep Mystique by her side for as long as she could. Now when it comes to Storm, she had a hunch that something was amiss, but couldn't quite pinpoint it. So with that said, her anger correctly led her to believe that there was a hidden truth within a truth, and she suspected that something was being kept from her. But before she could get it out of Destiny, something demanded her attention. For above Krakoa, Hope was going toe-to-toe with Exodus. As the two powerhouses battled above the island, Storm was forced to leave Destiny behind to attend to the fight. We then transitioned to Mystique's room, where Mother Righteousness attempted to have a conversation with her. However, this was a mistake, as Mystique doesn't tolerate foolishness, for in a split second, Mystique slammed the mother onto the floor and held a knife inches from her eyes, which prompted the mother to ask if Mystique doesn't trust her. But see, one thing you have to understand about Mystique is that she trusts no one, with the exception for Destiny. So the mother got up slowly, holding a message in her hand, as she explained that she found something in Sinister's files from the future that she wanted to share with Mystique. For the file was a message from Irene to Sinister about Mystique. Now this intrigued Mystique as she accepted the file and began playing it. So with that said, this is another example of the mother trying to recruit new followers for her cause. So as the mother focuses on corrupting Mystique, let's shift our attention to the ongoing battle above the island. Storm unleashed a fierce lightning strike on Hope and Exodus, strong enough to shatter mountains. However, the attack proved to be ineffective against the two formidable opponents, cause it was like someone was throwing water on their faces. Because from Hope's perspective, after seeing the future, there was no way she could return back to working side by side with Exodus. So with Storm being fed up with their fight, she points out that this must be hard on all of Krakoa, because Hope must understand how much it means for everyone to see the leader of the Five and her shield, who stood defiant on Judgment Day, fighting overhead. And on a side note, this really pissed me off, because yeah, Storm had an obligation to show them what happened in the future, but the way she went about doing it was messed up. Because ultimately all it managed to do was drive a hard division between the council. I truly believe that Storm could have gotten her point across without breaking the council the way she did. For instead of blaming the Sinister gene for everything, it was almost like she was blaming them personally for actions they haven't even done yet. But anyway, getting back to the story, as the three descended to the ground below, Hope is still unwilling to talk it out. As she states, if he knew what an Omega-level power manipulator can do, for it is more than just copying someone's power. Because Omega means there's no limit to what she could do when it comes to manipulating power, which includes taking someone's abilities. So with Exodus stripped of his power, Hope continues to say, your God gives and your God takes away. So with a powerless Exodus before her, Hope begins to beat him down, despite his size. Which once again, in my opinion, was pointless, for A, he hasn't done anything to her in this timeline to deserve it, and B, Exodus refused to hit her back, because out of the two of them, he feels no anger against her and truly didn't want to fight her, which made him an easy target to beat down. So after Hope did what she did, she told Exodus to stay away from her, for she isn't his Messiah and he is no church. So with that said, she approached Storm and said she was sorry and that she have no words. Which once again, made me lose a lot of respect for Hope. Now on the next page, following all this chaos, Storm prepared to head back to Araco after asking Charles if he wanted to talk about Max's death, for Charles never really spoke about his feelings towards his close friend's untimely demise. But see, Charles wasn't ready to have that conversation yet, for the pain was still fresh. So with Charles walking away, Storm points out to Emma that she was taking this whole situation better than everyone else. Which was true, because Emma has lived as a villain before, which was why she was used to the shame that comes along with it. So with that established, she goes on to say they weren't truly themselves because Sinister unlocked their worst sides, which made them do what they did in that alternate future. So she truly feels that this version of them isn't the version of them from the future, no matter what others believe. Which I wholeheartedly believe, for in this comic, Storm seems uncharacteristically willing to prosecute them for actions they haven't done yet. But with that out there, Storm goes on to say that the actions they did in the present day led to what came in the future, once again without addressing the genes. But that is when Emma claps back by saying, "I'm unsure why you think you're in a position to judge us," because Storm was the one who stated that Araco needed no thrones, and yet she still ended up being worshipped as some kind of King Arthur. And as for the Sinister's timeline, Emma points out that Storm overlooked one very important part of it, which was that Storm was herself in the future, but it took her 5 years to realize anything was wrong. For Storm stayed in Araco doing nothing while Krakoa drowned down on Earth. So with that said, Emma finished her conversation by saying, Storm is still a member of the Quiet Council for a reason, and with most of the council votes gone, she will need to step up more than ever before. So with all that conversation coming to an end, we skip over to the mother and Shaw scheming in the shadows. For as we seen back in issue number 6 of Immortal X-Men, they have a pre-existing history. So with that said, Shaw was thinking about developing their relationship further, for in his words, he believes that Krakoa is going to go south, and because the island is full of riches, he wants to become the owner once it all falls apart, which was what brought him to the mother to begin with, for he had hopes that she could arrange something. Which the mother was more than happy to do so, but she wanted something more practical than a thank you in return. Because she wanted to use his position on the council to push certain motions, which Shaw states will never pass, even with 4 votes gone. So a few days later, Storm arrives back on Krakoa to meet with a certain someone, for Emma's harsh words rung true in her mind. Because she fears her situation between Charles and herself is deteriorating, which made her aware of a certain truth. For she has responsibilities on 2 worlds, but unfortunately, she can't be in both locations at once, which means it will be a dereliction of her duties to both places to step down from either council. But with said, her split attention can also cause problems for both countries. So with her unable to attend both councils at all times, she needs someone she could trust to speak for her when she is not there, someone in an emergency situation that can vote for me via proxy. And the person she chose for this is none other than the Russian spy, Colossus. Which is the completely wrong move to do given his current situation, because as of right now, Colossus has control over Krakoa Black Ops team as well as several votes on the council. So with that said, issue number 11 of Immortal X-Men comes to an end. So down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.